Okay, let's get started. So thank you everyone for attending. My name is Ned Fluet, Mayor of the town of Woodside, and I want to welcome you all to the Town Hall on wildfire and wildfire prevention. This is the second of what I hope will be an annual meeting for Woodside as well as Portola Valley. Last year, for those who were there, this event was held in the Portola Valley Town Hall. And this year, unfortunately, the universe had other plans for us. We were hoping to do it in our town hall. COVID-19 and shelter in place has become our new reality, but this pandemic does not lessen the threat of wildfire. And in fact, we likely need to be more diligent and more prepared this year than ever. And so to that end, we invited three speakers to discuss wildfire season in 2020, what we can expect, and I think most importantly, what we as residents can do to protect ourselves. I think one theme you're going to see running through our three speakers' presentations are that this is an effort that will only be successful with resident involvement and us taking care of our own properties and we being prepared and working alongside of our first responders in our town. So tonight we're going to have Woodside Town Manager Kevin Bryant, Woodside Fire Protection District Emergency Preparedness Coordinator Selena Brown, and Woodside Fire Protection District Fire Chief Rob Lindner speaking to us about wildfire and wildfire-related issues. So I think we'll first hear from the three of them, and then I imagine we'll have time to take questions from those who are attending via Zoom, which tonight we're just going to be doing via the chat function. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a button there for chat, and you can type in your questions there. Some people have given us questions in advance, so I think our speakers will be addressing some of those questions and giving answers throughout their presentations. But of course, if you don't hear your question answered during the presentations, feel free to enter your question in the chat bar, and we will try to address it before the 8 o'clock deadline. So again, welcome to everyone, and thank you all for attending what I think is a really important town hall, something that is of particular importance to the town of Woodside and Portola Valley, given our place in San Mateo County. So with that, I will first turn it over to our town manager, Kevin Bryant, who will let us know what the town has been doing and will be doing to prepare for this year's fire season. Take it away, Kevin.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Fluet. Good evening, everybody. Says a little. The one thing I haven't gotten used to in the Zim universe is that you're staring out at either a sea of faces or a list of names, and it's not. You can't compare being in the room, which is always preferable. And like everybody on this call, I look forward to the day we can do that again. I just wanted to, first of all, I wanted to thank our partners from Woodside Fire here this evening, because they are, obviously very important to what the town's efforts are, and everything that we do really depends on them. They are integral to our efforts in large ways and small. And kind of my overall theme for what the town, or kind of how I view this issue in particular, as it relates to people who live in town or live in our community, is that this is another one of those we're all in this together kind of issues, in that, and the town's programs are really built around this idea. There are things that the town is responsible for, there are things that the fire district is responsible for, and we do take care of those, but we also recognize that there's a lot that can be done by individuals and a lot that should be done by individuals. And so we have programs, some of them longstanding, that really seek to take advantage of that notion that these agents, your local government is here to help you do the right thing by managing your own property, things like defensible space. And of course, the WPV-Ready, all of the efforts, the locally driven efforts to prepare for emergencies, to help neighbors and look out for neighbors. That's really the foundation of, the town. It's the foundation of emergency response. It's the foundation of preparing for wildfire. So what I wanted to do is just talk about some of the things, kind of starting from the town side and working towards programs that are available for individuals or property owners. That by all means, we want everyone who's on on this webinar, on this call to take advantage of, if I suspect many of you have already, but these are important steps to take. Probably to start, the town manages, by and large, we manage our town rights of way, which unfortunately does not include the state highways. So 280, Highway 84, and a little bit of Highway 35, Skyline Boulevard, are the responsibility of the state of California. And so the work that's done there is done by the state. I communicated yesterday with Senator Hill's office about trying to get the latest information from Caltrans on what their plans are. And the message I got back, again, this is filtered through Senator Hill's office, is that for folks who are up in the mayor's neighborhood on the highway, on La Honda Road, 84, they were kind of, they were looking at a schedule and possibly moving next week, starting the first full week of July, starting July 6th, starting to work on Highway 84. And the work that they've described, or at least again, coming through Senator Hill's office, is that mowing, weed abatement, and some tree trimming really along the highway. They don't go into a whole lot more detail than that, but the takeaway there is there should be some, you should start to see some state activity up on the Hill, which is great news. For the town's rights of way, there are really two things that we do every year. And for people who have been here a long time, and we've had our public works crew here a long time, I think over the last 20, 25 years, the work that's been done to clean up roadsides around Woodside has really helped. So every year we go out to do vegetation management along roadsides. It's a little less challenging than it was the year before. And that's something that we do as a matter of course. We start early, and you see our crews out now doing vegetation management. The big thing that we have added in the last several years is starting to actively manage and remove hazardous trees. And the hazardous trees that we target, not surprisingly, are eucalyptus trees. And we have, over the last several years, the town has committed around $300,000 a year to various groves of eucalyptus or individual trees on rights of way. This is one of those areas that I mentioned that we rely heavily on the fire district and the fire marshal to help us prioritize that list of trees. And just to give an example, the most recent project that we finished was on Blue Ridge Lane, which is off of Mountain Home Road. And those are a bunch of trees that were old. There was a line of eucalyptus. They were old. They were overhanging distribution lines, PG&E distribution lines. And so those are the kind of factors that fire looks at. They look at age of tree. They look at the presence of power lines in the area, evacuation routes, and potential impacts of that all get factored into prioritizing the list of trees that the town works on. What we are adding, or what we're able to add this year, starting this year, which is terrific, is that we have applied for and been given notice that we are getting money from the federal government under the FEMA hazard mitigation grant funding. And that's money that's released and available from the federal government to try to prevent catastrophes from happening. And this is money that was released after some of the fires in Northern California. FEMA allowed for basically everyone in Northern California to apply for these, local agencies to apply for these. And so what that means is in this year's budget, we were able to triple the amount of money, including that FEMA money, that we can put towards hazardous tree removal. And again, that's primarily going to be focused on, although not exclusively, but primarily focused on eucalyptus. And the fire district helped us identify those locations. We will be, once the money pipeline comes in, we'll start rolling out those projects. Right now, we are also doing a defensible space project in the Joan Olson Preserve, which is a town-owned open space and an area that was overdue for some treatment. And again, the fire district helped us scope out a project to make sure that we have defensible space on our own property. So that project is, if it hasn't started, it will start very shortly. And over the last couple of years, we've also done some access improvements on easements that the town holds for emergency response. So those are the kind of things that the town is doing, was continued to do. One of the things that I think the mayor will agree that he hears me say maybe once a quarter when we're talking about budget issues at the council is that staff is going to proceed on those projects really without, there's a budget number that we plan for, but we're not going to be holden by that if there are opportunities for us to do more. And the last thing I should say about that is that one of the other factors that we look at is leveraging work that PG&E does. They will come out and do tree trimming. They, under their own rules of engagement on things like eucalyptus, oftentimes they will top them or trim them. And sometimes we can take advantage of their work, like we did here on Blue Ridge recently, to take out trees entirely at something of a lower cost. So all of that gets rolled in together to have that program go out, and we're excited that we're going to have a lot more resources to devote to that. So those are a couple of the major initiatives in terms of just town vegetation management. These are things that we do to just reduce fire fuel load. And as many people know, if you know that the long history of this community is oak, woodland, and redwoods, and we've got a lot of trees that have been planted over time and non-native, and now they're becoming problematic, and we're taking care of those. So the second piece of our fuel reduction program is the Defensible Space Matching Fund program. This is something that's unique to Woodside. We've had it for, this year marks the 10th year. We are coming on very soon. We're going to be coming on to the $1 million mark in terms of grants that have been awarded to people. And this is a program that is designed to work in tandem with the fire district. And we, both agencies, work to make this as simple and as easy as possible. We ask that a resident or property owner contact the fire marshal. Fire marshal will or send somebody out and do an inspection. And there's a form where they go through and identify work that needs to be done or should be done for defensible space. And then the town will contribute dollar for dollar up to a maximum grant of $3,000 for $6,000 worth of defensible space work. And that program is inclusive now of a couple of things. Number one, it's not merely defensible space in the sense that it's brush clearance and getting rid of debris and that kind of thing. Removal of hazardous trees is something that the fire district recommends, and we also fund through that program. So I can tell you that we've seen a lot of pines, dead pines. We've seen a lot of eucalyptus come down over the years utilizing that program. So it is available. We encourage people to use it. We want to see those trees come down all over town, and that program is a great way for us to help make that happen. The other thing that's relatively new in the last year or so is the town council added a home hardening component to the Defensible Space Matching Fund grant. And that there are three specific tasks that can be done, or three particular actions that can be taken, which are also eligible for that matching fund. And those are replacing a wood shake roof with a non-combustible roof, adding ember-resistant venting, or replacing vents around the exterior of your structure with ember-resistant venting. And the other actually includes earthquake safety, and that is an automatic gas shutoff valve. So those are three home hardening projects that are now eligible under that program. And we have started to see people take advantage of that as well. So again, this is all in the theory that we're partners. Local property owners and the town and the fire district are all partners trying to reduce or mitigate fire fuel load in the community. And this is the best program that we've got available to do that. The last thing I wanted to mention, again, a longstanding program that's a partnership between both towns, both Woodside and Portola Valley, and the fire district, is the CHIPPR program, which is out and it's in process right now. This is a great program where people who do the right thing and get their property cleaned up, you accumulate a lot of debris. And as the fire folks will tell you, this is a program whereby, free of charge, that debris will be chipped. It's a way of taking care of it, so you don't have to figure out where the debris is going to go. It's a great incentive. Again, it's a great incentive to do the right thing. I think this predate my time here, so it's going on well past 10 years. And I think I'll ask the fire chief to comment on this, but I think cumulatively over a 10-year period, the amount of fuel that we have here has gone down. It has to have, and there's still a lot of work to go. but we've made inroads, and we're in better shape than we would have been if these community efforts, the efforts of people who live here and care about the town, haven't been taken. So those are the things I wanted to kind of highlight in terms of town or town-sponsored programs. The other thing I just wanted to touch on before ceding or turning it over to the next speaker is, now one of the things that goes with wildfires is PG&E's public safety power shutoff program, and we were affected by that several times last year, some for a fairly lengthy period of time. I think everyone knows that the town or the fire district doesn't have direct regulatory authority over PG&E. That falls to the state and the State Public Utilities Commission. But in the last few months, PG&E has been sharing with local governments and local agencies what they are doing to try to reduce. So they're doing really two important things. And again, time will tell. But they certainly got some good feedback last year. And so they are taking efforts by hardening their actual system to reduce the scope of public sector power shutoffs. So the amount of area would be less. They're also looking to make those times shorter. And then the second thing is related to information, and they've really beefed up their capacity to provide information. Last year, by their own acknowledgement, they didn't anticipate the size of some of those PSPS events that they would have, and what it would do to their systems, where they wanted people to go to the website so that you could get property specific information. They didn't have the capacity, and they have completely ramped up the capacity to do so. Again, PG&E, I think, is taking the right steps. Nobody wants to have their power shut off, and that's not an ideal, and it's not a sustainable solution to this problem. But I, for one, think that it's an important tool to have in the toolbox, and we just need to make sure that we can work with PG&E to minimize the impact of it. Because I think ultimately, what we want to try to avoid, if at all possible, is an ignition. That's the most dangerous thing that we face, and we know from other parts of the state that power lines cause ignitions. So I think that's all I wanted to say. And I'll let the next speaker take it from there.
Thanks, Kevin. And we had some people join while you were speaking, so let me just let them know that we'll be doing Q&A towards the end of the presentation, so closer to 8. But in the meantime, please do type in your questions. It looks like you can either use the Q&A button or the chat button at the bottom, and we'll be able to see them. I see there's a couple of questions popping up now, but we, in the interest of time, we'll turn it over to, actually, before we go to Selena, sorry. If anyone's curious about the home hardening, defensible space, or chipper program, all those programs more information can be found on the town website if they go there. We have a lot of information about all those programs on our town website if they're interested. So,
I've never done this, although I've seen it done. I'll post a link to the chat so people can just see it.
Great, thanks, Kevin. So with that, we will turn it to Selena Brown from the Woodside Fire Protection District.
Hey everyone, thanks for participating. It looks like we have about 52 participants right now, so that's really awesome to see on there. And from what I saw on there are a lot of people that were on our virtual CERT radio day last week. So some of this stuff might be redundant, but it's a message I have to share constantly. When we talk about wildfire, we talk about wildfire preparedness, and my role here is to help the residents be more prepared and prepared and resilient if a wildfire were to happen. So what do we do in the case of a potential wildfire? You first want to make a plan in advance. We want to make sure that you guys are aware that no matter all the work that's being done between the fire district and the towns and PG&E and Caltrans and everybody, that there is still a very high potential. So ensuring that you're prepared in every way possible is extremely important. You need to gather information, make a communication plan. Our communication system here is not reliable, as with anywhere else. So you need to make sure everybody in your household knows what to do if you can't talk to them via phone, via text message, via email? Do you guys have a plan of where you would evacuate to if there is an evacuation and evacuation order? Also, too, do you know every route out of your area? When we talk about evacuations, everybody is always so concerned about where am I going to be evacuated to? Where are you going to send us? Where are we going to go? Well, since there are so many variables, we have to tell you right off the bat that you need to know every single way in and out of your area. It may only be one. That is a reality, but you need to know it. You need to know it. You need to be aware that if there are other routes, that you drive them when it's dark, you drive them when the visibility is poor, you know them inside and out, and everybody else in your household too. You need to take considerations for children in your household. Maybe an evacuation order may happen while your children are not in the household, or if you have older adults or people with special needs. You need to think about the things that you need to do in order to ensure that you guys can evacuate and survive for a period of time not at home. And that means creating a go bag that has some essentials. You can create a go bag very easily if you go to the WPV-Ready website, and we'll make sure to put it in the chat there. They have wonderful checklists on there, exactly what you need to get together. And don't forget your animals, because Red Cross right now cannot handle animals at shelters currently. So this is for small animals. And in Woodside, Portola Valley, we have a huge population of horses. So if you have large animals, you need to consider what you will do in that type of an emergency. So make sure you make a plan, you share that plan with all of your family members, and you practice that plan. So if practicing means getting it out and talking to each other and having that out-of-state contact, making sure that phone number is still working, making sure all your medical information is updated, your school information, you want to do this regularly, and you want to sit down with your family. And I mean, right now, a lot of us are still sheltering in place, so this is a great time for us to utilize that time to plan and talk about really important things with your family. When are good times to have a heightened alert? Well, during red flag days. Red flag days, those are the days that you need to be fully aware, not using mowers or chopping your grass. When it's really hot, we want you to be on high alert and try to also be prepared if you do have to evacuate. So if you do have a go bag, have it ready, have it put in your car, have your car facing out if you need to leave. So red flag days means pay more attention. As well, how would you get notifications in an evacuation? Right now, our primary notification system is SMC Alert. That's what we use. Now, we may not send an evacuation order out if we don't have time. Say if it's a rapidly moving fire that we don't have enough information about, and we're not going to push an evacuation order out unless we have proper information. That doesn't mean we're not going to evacuate you. It just means that you need to be aware and ready. If you don't feel safe in your home, if you smell smoke, if you see helicopters flying over or planes, or you hear sirens, or you hear people, get out. We want you to leave early. And Denise, our fire marshal, used to say, please leave early and save everyone. You can leave, and then if it's not a big instance, you can come back. You don't want to wait until we push an evacuation order out, because at that point, the time you may have to leave is going to be maybe minimal. So you want to try to utilize as much time as you have ahead of time. And if we do put an evacuation order out, we will try to include as much information about that evacuation order, what direction you may need to go, if there's a shelter that you need to go to. The fire chief will just touch on this a little bit more in a minute. I'm just kind of glazing over, but you need to be signed up for SMC Alert. Also, too, having an AM radio next to your bed is a good idea on those red flag alert days. Portola Valley has an AM radio station, 1680, and it's actually broadcasted pretty far. And so there are areas in Woodside that you can actually hear it, as well as having a weather radio, which is called a NOAA radio. Although a lot of those, it's hard to get reception in certain areas. So our major, we use SMC Alert as our major notification system. And like I said, my fire chief will touch on that a little bit more. But when it comes back down to you and what you can do to help the community, that's why we have WPV-Ready. And that program is established for residents by residents to assist in getting everybody prepared. So next week we have, or July, I believe 14th, we have a class called Fire Resiliency. And it teaches you basically how to look at your home from the top of the roof all the way out to your driveway and figure out what you can do right now, or make a plan and slowly work up to it, and how you can make your home more fire resilient. And it is an essential class. It's exactly what, if you call the fire district and say, can I have a wildfire inspection, which by the way, they're free, and you're not tattletaling if you're calling about a concerned property that's overgrown. We appreciate that. But it's a free service we provide. Well, we'll come to your property and we'll walk around with you. And a lot of the things we recommend are recommendations. They're not requirements. There are certain things that we require that are required, but a lot of the stuff that we recommend are just recommendations. So don't feel overwhelmed or think that we're going to come in and tell you you have to do all of this stuff and chop down all of these trees, because that is not what we want to do. We want to work with our homeowners so that we can make people happy on both ends. And then yes, what Kevin touched on, the chipper program. I just want to say, you guys are great at participating in the chipper program. Absolutely. The chipper program has been extremely successful, and it's grown so much, but we cannot stress enough how important it is to follow the guidelines for it. So please do not put anything out more than 30 days in advance, because that becomes a fire hazard. And also, please, please, please make sure you don't put anything in the piles that could be dangerous. We have all our guidelines of what you can and can't do on our website at woodsidefire.org. And we've actually updated it too with some really great info on it. But we, not too long ago, had an instance where we had a piece of metal in our chipper and it damaged our chipper. And that can not only damage our chipper, but it could also hurt the people that are trying to help you. So we will go by, and if we see a pile that is not safe for us to chip, maybe it has poison oak or eucalyptus bark, we will pass it by. So, so please be aware that we do try to keep an eye out, but we hope that you guys can work with us. So I'm going to end it briefly there like that, and I'm going to pass it over to the fire chief so we can keep on moving on.
Great. Thank you, Selena. That was fantastic. And I will turn over to the fire chief.
Thank you, Mayor Fluet. Hi, everybody. I'm Rob Lindner, Fire Chief of the Woodside Fire Protection District. Normally on these, we have our Fire Prevention Division on these webinars or at our presentations. Our Fire Marshal was unavailable tonight, so you got to deal with me instead. So sorry about that, or I'm here and I will try and answer as many of your questions if they're prevention related as possible. If I can't, then I will definitely relay them to our fire marshal or the fire prevention division and get those answered for you. What I wanted to do is talk really quick about our district itself. I see a lot of names on there who are very familiar, and hello to all of you that know me. And I see a lot of names that I'm not familiar with, so I don't know if this is your first time on here. So I wanted to give a really brief introduction on the district itself, on who we are. So we are a fire district. We are not a fire department, meaning, you know, we don't operate off a city budget, off the general plan, the general fund. We provide services to multiple areas. So the Woodside Fire Protection District provides services to the town of Woodside, to the town of the Portola Valley, and to the unincorporated areas in this area. We cover an area of about 32 square miles. So if you were to draw a box, basically, it would be from about Edgewood Road, south to the county line, west to Skyline Boulevard, and east to, say, Alameda de las Pulgas, other than like about the northeastern portions of Redwood City, where we're up in the Emerald Hills area as well. We have a station up there. So we operate those 32 square miles with 3 stations. So 3 stations only. We have a on-duty staff of 14 maximum, minimum of 13. So to cover that, that's what we have. So we are busy as far as either calls or dealing with our non-emergent items that we have to do, whether that be training or prevention, as we're talking about here. but we also have automatic aid, which assists us. So if you've ever seen larger scale incidents in this area, we will get the assistance of our neighboring agencies, which would be Cal Fire or San Mateo County Fire, Redwood City Fire, Menlo Park Fire, and even Palo Alto Fire will provide us assistance, and we provide assistance to them as well. So in those events, you know, it's a seamless automatic aid system that goes through one dispatch, and we don't have to call multiple numbers to get assistance there. We get it automatically through dispatch, which is good for this area. The other benefit that we have in our district is almost pretty much our entire 32 square miles is deemed as what's called a mutual threat zone. And that means that the land is either, our local land is surrounded by either state land or anything else. And by it being neighboring to state land, the state has a say-so on, you know, if they want to provide services. So Cal Fire provides those services. So in the event that you have a car fire that's going towards the vegetation, Cal Fire gets notified and they will send a state response. So for those of you that have been here for a while, you'll notice that during the daylight hours, if we have a fire, you will start to see larger equipment pretty rapidly because we have that ability from the get-go. We don't have to ask for those resources. They already are being notified, and generally they get dispatched. And we have multiple Cal Fire battalion chiefs in this county that will take over their portion on a state level, which consists of their firefighters, their hand crews, their aircraft, and we get those services. So that's a huge benefit to us. So that's a little breakdown of our district and what we provide. And, you know, I'm looking at a lot of the questions as we're going forward, and a lot of this is, you know, we live in an area with trees and brush and a lot of threat. And we know that, and it scares us just as much as you. I've been here 25 years and I've seen quite a few, but we have to prepare for the worst, and we're trying to do that. So what we do at our just basic level is we do inspections. We do provide engine company inspections. Our fire prevention division does those inspections as well. We go through, our engine companies will either go around neighborhoods and do visual checks or make some type of contact with the neighbors. We have the ability to, if you want a more thorough assessment of your property, that our fire prevention division will come out and do that assessment and give you a report back. We respond to neighborhood complaints, neighbor complaints. We are very active with our communications with the two towns and with the county, and the relationship between the two towns is phenomenal, you know, as far as what our ultimate goal is. So we've never had an issue to where or at least I never have in my 25 years here, where there's been resistance by a recommendation that we've made. The chipper program has been huge, and that's where Kevin was talking about things have changed over the years, and I've seen it definitely as far as what the residents have done to assist as much as you can. It has made a difference. Obviously, you can't make all the difference in the world, and that's where some of these questions go about. So we do apply pressure on the residents. We apply pressure on the town. We apply pressure on the state. We apply pressure on open space, on what we feel are the priorities that we feel are out there. And we've met with resistance at other levels at times, but we are breaking through as far as getting more work done. The majority of the work that we get done on a larger scale that's not at the chipper or the company level is through grants. And we get grants, either we get the grants or the towns get the grants, the county gets a grant, or through Fire Safe San Mateo County, they would get a grant, and basically everything is triaged as far as level of importance. And then once a grant is given, then there's that ability to provide services. So an example would be the work that was done on Highway 84 last year up near from Skyline down to Friars Lane. That was provided by a grant. So it was I can't remember what grant it started before I became the fire chief, but it was at a state level. So Caltrans was supposed to provide assistance to us as far as traffic control and all of that. It didn't turn out as successful at that level. So us, the town, we did as much as we could with the money that we had, and were able to provide those services. There was a comment that was made about, was there environmental issues that stopped the project, or they heard that there was environmental issues. Through CEQA, there were issues that were addressed, but that didn't stop the project. It just gave us parameters as to when we could either proceed with the project or we had to stop the project at a certain time. It didn't negate anything being done. And basically that came to a completion. So that money has been utilized. So we would have to seek more grants. The other grants that came out was the Teague Hill grant that we did through the open space property. It was difficult to get them to respond to it, but once they did, it was very successful. We've got about 3/4 of the project done, but that's the area off of, if you take Tripp Road, go up Summit Springs and go to the backside of those properties off of Roan, Pinto, and that Summit Springs area. We were able to do a clearance in that Teague Hill area, and we really had that as a focus because we've had 2 fires in there over the past 10 years, and that is a threat to us. So we did that. There was the governor's mandate that was that we had a specific area that was done through the governor's office off of Kings Mountain Road. That was done as well. A lot of people didn't like how much was cleared, but it was done successfully as far as the fire district is concerned, and that was through CAL FIRE and other stakeholders that have helped us out through that. From what I'm hearing is the governor mandates have scaled back and or ceased because of COVID-19 and the budget and all of that. So that's what we have to deal with as well, is state funds are changing, and we're hoping it's not going to be bad as far as what we're going to be able to receive. That's why we have to apply pressure, and we look to you, the residents, to voice your concerns as well, because if kind of an out of sight, out of mind thing, if nobody says anything, then probably nothing's going to get done as far as any type of action in areas. And I'll use open space as an example. You know, they have over, I want to say, 65,000 acres of land. And if we're not asking for certain areas, then they're probably going to prioritize something else. You know, a lot of comments are coming out of the Thornwood Preserve area. You know, it's a dangerous area for the residents as far as all that fuel. It's a dangerous area for us because we got to get in there. We've had 2 incidents in the last couple of months, and yes, it's a concern to us, and we've expressed that. We've expressed our concerns as to what we need, and once again, it goes to what open space is going to do in return. Our communication is improved with them, so I'm hoping that there's more, that they'll get more work done. But once again, by all means, more pressure through the residents helps. We kept it at a local portion with open space and got so far, but we needed to go further, so we took it to their board of directors, and the board of directors are well aware of the district's concerns, at least over the amount of property that are within our jurisdiction. So it is a pressure thing. Let's see, as far as more prevention, evacuations obviously are a concern to a lot of the residents. For those of you who have seen my presentations through Mercy Preparedness or anything else, you've heard that there is an evacuation platform that is coming out at a county level, and that is true. There's a company called Zone Haven, and some of you may have seen it now because it went in through the media, was in the almanac, as far as just a little blurb on what the services are. There's a little video. I encourage you to look at that video, but basically what the intent was the county of San Mateo recognized a concern that in the event of an evacuation and looking at all the larger scale incidents that have happened throughout the state, the biggest hindrance has been either miscommunication or lack of communication. And lack of communication or miscommunication between neighboring authorities or neighboring jurisdictions. So we made it a point at a county level to see if we can remedy that, at least to where we can all get on the same page. And there's this company that has an evacuation platform, and their name is Zone Haven. So this was brought forth to the County Board of Supervisors. The County Board of Supervisors approved the initial proposal to the initial funds to get a proposal through the organization, and they provided that information, and it was brought back to the County Board of Supervisors as to the appreciation and the satisfaction of all the agencies as to how it was proceeding. And it was brought back to the Board of Supervisors for to get more funds for a longer term contract to keep the plan going and keep it updated. So a 3-year contract was signed about a month ago after the Board of Supervisors approved it. And what this company does is it basically provides the platform for law enforcement, for fire, for OES, for you as the community to all be on the same page that in the event of an evacuation, it goes through this platform and then blasts it out to everybody. So if an evacuation is ordered through law enforcement, if we make the recommendation, keep in mind, law enforcement has to order an evacuation. Fire department can't do it, town can't do it, but law enforcement needs to. We can make the recommendation, and if law enforcement isn't there, they can always give that authority, so to speak, because there's no reason why they wouldn't. But in the event that they do that and we go through this platform, it will send the information to the Office of Emergency Services, who then blast out the SMC alert. SMC alert is our platform for giving out that information. But what it'll also do is it'll make the recommendations to send it out to all social media. It'll go out to the residents. When this platform is finished, is you as the residents will be given information and access to this information to know where you are in the platform. So in the platform, you're all designated within a grid, so to speak, of a location. And in the event that we need to evacuate, that specific section that needs evacuation would be labeled and you would be notified. Things that also go through that platform is there's a contract with some of the other stakeholders through either travel or transportation guidelines, meaning like Waze. Waze is on board with this, meaning if we had to evacuate the western part of the Woodside area via Highway 84, Waze would then reroute people that were not on 84 and not recommend them to go to 84. It would recommend them to go in the opposite direction. This is all set up through all the law enforcement agencies would be aware, so CHP would know. So in our perfect world, we want to know that if we had to do a large scale evacuation of our area, that we're getting motorists off of 280. We've experienced gridlock with smaller fires. We had a fire right off of Kenyatta Road quite a few years ago with some eucalyptus trees. And it happened during, the latter part of the early part of the afternoon into the mid-afternoon. That affected a commute that really gridlocked our entire district almost. And the goal is that if we need an evacuation, we don't want traffic going between Highway 92 and Pageville Road or south down to Highway 85. We want those areas closed off so nobody can go in and we can focus on people getting out. And this platform will allow us to do that. And if we get aid from other agencies, they will have the exact same information, the exact same maps to be able to provide those services. People have asked about how we notify, and there's only so many ways we can notify. We're going to try every single one of them, but there are ways that maybe somebody can't hear or won't hear, and that's why we have to get that word out that SMC alert is our priority. Social media will also be that, and we stress that the same information that comes out of an SMC alert goes through social media, not neighbor to neighbor giving what they thought they heard, because things start getting blown out of proportion, and we don't want that. We want neighbors helping neighbors. So in the event that there is one, go knock on neighbors' doors. And I see responses on here of having your own type of horn that you can advise your neighbors. Those are the things that we also need. It's not going to be 100% perfect. The NOAA radio is out there. There are areas that it's either spotty or not getting reception. The previous chief here had a discussion with a representative from NOAA. They evaluated it. That's when everybody got the radios, who has them, and found out that there were some issues. When that was brought back to them, they are looking at upgrading, but NOAA is huge. So once again, they prioritize areas. They know about our concerns. That, from what I've heard, they're looking at areas to the east that can provide a signal more to the west, but it's on their list. So we're reaching out as much as we can. Hopefully that will get better. Once again, it's all pressure either from us or from you as the residents as well. So we're looking at all of that. What else? There's been some talk about, where do I evacuate to, and what with COVID-19, how does that affect now? Sending large amounts of people to specific areas, and the state and the local region, which would be the greater Bay Area region, have already come out with a platform or a document that is already discussing this, and the recognition that we can't put 100 people, 500 people into a gymnasium. So they are looking at other alternatives that they can house people or temporarily house people that are more distant, whether that be through hotels, college dormitories, or something along that line. So they are already addressing that and have sent out some preliminary information regarding that. Can't think of anything else right now. I'm sure there's questions that are out there, so I can answer, or anybody else can answer as we go. Sorry I took up so much time.
No, that's great. This is supposed to be informational, and that was informational. So thank you for all that. I did want to leave a little bit of time. We have about 12 minutes to do questions, but I think I'll do is, to the extent I can kind of group some of these questions together, I'll do so. And I think maybe we could stay on the evacuation topic and electronic communications. I have this question. It's kind of a question that other people on the chats have. Is the Zone Haven platform is just a platform. Is there a way for the public to say access Zone Haven, or is there an app that they could go to kind of see these evacuation routes for themselves, or are we saying right now it's SMC alert and that's it? Because someone mentioned that San Diego has an app, and then you kind of, to tag along with that, what can we do about, and this is true up where I live, bad cell service? So, I guess first, is Zone Haven open to the public? How can people see these evacuation maps? Are there apps available? And then, what happens when cell towers go down?
Yeah, so Zone Haven will be an application-based. It's app-based.
Okay, great.
So once this comes out, it will go out to the residents in a county-wide form that you will all have access to that app, or you can go through the program and print out a copy of your area, of your specific area and what is in your area. It's a live document. So things that we do and things that we have the input on, and the towns will as well, is we have access to being able to provide the streets, the evacuation routes. If there's a gate that leads out that is viable for an evacuation, we can put that in there and be able to have that on the page. So in the event that somebody else, another agency, comes here and needs to assist with evacuations, they will see that on there. We have a critical infrastructure that's on there as far as the number of people within that grid. If there's schools, if there's a retirement center, if there's anything of larger scale, and the intent is their intent on when they did their polygons or their grids was to have it where there was a reasonable amount of people that could go out of that area and not make it too big to where it's out of reason, so to speak.
And then what would, kind of what's, not necessarily there's a solution, but what would you say to people who are concerned about, I mean, there's poor cell reception up in the hills right now, but if in case of a fire, if a cell tower goes down and cell reception gets worse, what would you advise people to do in terms of getting their information?
Right. So obviously those are the hindrances that we've been experiencing forever. We used to say, make sure you keep your landline, but now, with the way the cable company is working, a landline is not a landline like it used to be, and it could be digital, and when the power goes out, that goes out. We look at the alternatives. Any alternative that you can do, you should seek. If there's a recommendation that we can make, by all means, we'll do everything that we can. The cell carriers know from the PSPSs that it's a huge issue in our area, so they did some modifications in as far as battery backup. In the past, they did that as well. I have a meeting with one of the sheriff's representatives next week. One of my big questions, and what I've seen out in other counties, is the law enforcement agencies are going to their own type of notification via their vehicles. So we have sirens on our vehicles, and we have state mandates as to what tones of sirens we can do. Well, one of the sirens, that is very common on a siren box on vehicles, is what's called the high-low, which is kind of the European version where you just have the low, high, repeated. That's not legal for us to use as far as us going to a call, but law enforcement agencies realize, why can't we use this and then go driving through the neighborhood with that on, and that would notify the residents, that's an evacuation tone. So other counties are utilizing that. I need to confirm if our county, one, has that capabilities, and two, what they are doing as a law enforcement. So I have that meeting next week, so I can't answer that one right now, but hopefully I can do that.
I want to actually add to that too. And yes, cell phone providers, I have, and I don't mean to call them out, but I have T-Mobile, and it's terrible in my office at work. Like, it's terrible. It is but I have it, right? So yes, there is an issue, but what I can say is that, you get involved in your community programs, get involved in CERT, get involved in WPV-Ready, because it's you and your neighbors that is going to help you in these times. You may have a neighbor that, knows that there's something's going on, and you guys have some sort of communication plan. Or in CERT, we do have a GMRS radio system that we are now putting up, where if you're involved in CERT, you can purchase a handheld radio, and that's one form of communication. As well, get your ham radio license. When the fires happened up north several years ago, all the communication systems went down except for ham radio, all of them. So ham operators are actually very prevalent in our area in Woodside and Portola Valley. And Portola Valley has a radio club. So there are other areas. It just takes a little bit of work on our resident side. But you know what? It's all about getting to know your neighbors and create a really strong team.
And Selena, someone just asked, for radio, what station should we be tuning into for local emergency information?
Well, Portola Valley has a local radio station, and it's 1680, and you can hear it in parts of Woodside. And I know it has been discussed, and I know eventually it probably wants to be carried over throughout Woodside, but Portola Valley is 1680.
Okay. So another question, and I think I saw it twice, was about this. They wanted to get your take on the Stanford Wedge project on Alpine Road, which unfortunately I'm not very familiar with, so I don't know if either of you could speak to that project.
Yeah, so there's a project that's being proposed in the Portola Valley area that's larger scale compared to just a residential, just a single residence that's going up. So yeah, that proposal's come out. Our stance, or my stance, and our stance is we can't deny a project just because, but our concern is fire safety for the area. So if the town Portola Valley is to approve something that we want some type of assurance that the fuel management is prior to, during the building, and after the building, that there is success on them, on whoever has the property or whoever owns the surrounding property, if it's not utilized on all of the acreage, that there is a fuel management that helps make sure that there's the safety of the residents in that area, the residents in the surrounding area, and the ability to get out in the event of an emergency. So we can't deny the project. We have no ability to deny a project other than voice our concerns. And we've talked at our own level. We've talked with the towns or the town as to what those concerns are, and we've talked to the Stanford, the ownership at Stanford, and they know our concerns. And I don't know how it's going to proceed. We've been given verbal as far as, you know, what the intent is, but we haven't seen anything specific. And until then, you know, the area of that land concerns us today. And until we view it different, it still concerns us.
Okay, great. Thank you. I had not heard this, but one of the participants wrote that they had heard from a CAL FIRE employee that there's no plan for a fire up by Skyline because redwood forests don't burn, which I imagine is a misconception that she believes many residents have. I assume that's a misconception that redwood forests don't burn. And if it is, you know, how would you suggest fighting that kind of misinformation that's out there?
I just want to say first off, though, I've actually taught several classes where I've had residents come up to me and said people of other fire agencies have said, oh, this area will not burn. It's not going to burn. You know, redwood trees are pretty fire resistant and they can survive a wildfire because of their bark, but it does not mean that we cannot have a wildfire. So I am constantly trying to educate people when they come up to me and have questions about that. There's not much we can do when it's somebody within the fire service that's sharing that information, but it all comes down to when you are talking to somebody. So if I give a resident the information of saying we live in a high fire danger zone, then it is up to them to then know that that is the truth and then share it with anybody else. I mean, there's not much we can do if there's misinformation being put out there other than trying to correct it when we hear it.
Okay, great. And we just have a couple minutes left. So I think the last question, because it's been repeated a few times and looks like Selena has been great about answering a lot of these questions via the chat, but I think a lot of concern, especially people up in the hills, is how to handle open space and thornwood. So, you know, you mentioned giving kind of public pressure on these entities. What would be the message you would want the public to give to, say, the Open Space Board, and how should that be delivered?
Yeah, that one I'm gonna refer to our fire marshal that way, because I know that they've been in those meetings. They know what has been said.
Okay.
So let me confirm with them, and I'll have them reach out to, you know, there was a comment on, will we answer these questions? Yeah, we'll answer those questions and give you the recommendations as to contacts to made, or what, you know, is there a buzzword that we should say or anything like that? Like, we'll definitely help as much as we can.
Great. And you know, unfortunately, we're out of time, so we're not going to get to every question. I will let our panelists, if they have any final words or pieces of advice they'd like to give the folks on the call, they can do so now. I don't know if there's anything you guys want to leave this group with, what would that be? One final thought.
Kevin, it's up to you. You go.
No, I don't think I have any. You know, I guess my final thought would be the one I sort of led with, which is what's important is that we all view each other as partners in all of this. That it's everyone has some responsibility, and you know, fundamentally, I think you know, one of the things that a government represents is it's a pact among people, and this is our community. And so, you know, you can't think about things in terms of what about me. You have to think about your neighborhood and your community, and all of the things that we've talked about today are about how to take care of us as a bigger group. That's got to be the foundation. It's got to be our thought process. And if we keep that kind of at the front, then, you know, we're going to go in the right direction. I'm confident of that.
I agree. I'll have to say, I like to tell people that you hear about all these major disasters that happen, and you know, all these like the earthquakes in Japan, and how they were so prepared, but it was the areas that had a sense of community that were resilient and survived. So making sure that we have a sense of community by working together will ensure that we will be resilient if we do happen to have a wildfire.
My last thing would be just, I know there's a lot of questions and concerns as to, you know, who do we talk to, or what do we do, or how do we get this done? You know, obviously, if you're going through the fire district, go through our fire prevention division. If you're not hearing anything, you know, you can go these other routes. Call me, leave me an email. You can call the town. You can go through Selena. We all talk. There's not we're, like I said, we're small. It's not a case of where we ignore each other. We will talk. And if the town manager or the mayor are getting an email on a fire related issue, I'm going to guess that 99.5 times out of 100, I'm getting the email, or our fire prevention division is getting the email, or Selena is getting the email, because they want the appropriate stakeholder to answer that question. So if you're not getting that answered, please, you know, reach out to us. And if you're not getting that answer, then go one step and contact one more of us, and we'll be sure to get back to you on that.
Great. Thank you, Chief. And let me repeat that, which is my email is open. Email me with any questions or concerns, and we will try to get you an answer, get you help if you need it. Let me make one last pitch for our various volunteer committees. We have an emergency preparedness committee that's, I believe, has open spots. We have what we call the circulation committee, which does traffic and all sorts of issues regarding roads, which I think would also be relevant to the issues we discussed here. So the town is always looking for volunteers to help out. I know WPV-Ready is always looking for volunteers as well. So there are ways for you to, get your hands dirty, get your voice heard, and get involved. And I recommend all those committees to everybody. Please do give us a call and apply, because we need as many volunteers as we can get to help broaden this community. So with that, thank you to our speakers. You guys were phenomenal. It's very informative, and thank you for everyone who attended. Again, I think this is one of the biggest threats that faces Woodside and Portola Valley. So thank you all for coming in tonight. And again, please email me if you have any questions, and email the chief or Selena or Kevin as well. Thank you all.
Thank you too, Ned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.